Sorry, we're going live.
Okay. Oh, hello. We are live. We are live, and I think we need to record this as well, just in case we want to put it with with our beautiful swans later. But welcome everybody. I'm just going to mute my phone so that we can. And there are people waiting already and watching. I love it. Love it.
Fantastic.
So, I know. Welcome everybody. Welcome Mama Swan, Chengi and our marriage and divorce coach, Coach Yvonne Green. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you very gladly. And what about you? It's been wonderful in London for a change.
We are doing good. It was party out here in these streets. We've just been having a good time dancing and creating content and creating events, and it's just been so much fun here in the bunch.
Yeah, and it's so fun. We just had finished our Swan Nation relationships. For those who don't know, we do a weekly coaching group. So we've got 3 calls, which is the Swan Nation relationships, singles, and the platinum, which is with Mama Swan every other 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks? Every 2 weeks. Every other 2 weeks.
Every other week. Every other week is what she meant. Yes.
Every other week
on a Thursday.
So every other week on a Thursday. So today we've just finished doing our session for relationships, and we're talking about this topic, and it brought up a lot of very interesting conversation. So today we're talking about prenups, reasons why prenups are not just for celebrities. So we need you to chime in. Like, don't wait for us to, to start this topic. Just get into the comments and let us know what you're thinking. Do you think everybody should have a prenup? Do you think it is wise for a woman to safeguard her money? Is it trusting? Is it something that you think is just for men and wealthy men who are introducing women of no means as such into their community? Tell you a little story that actually happened when some of these topics come about. As you know, there's so many celebrities out here who are being done for, either ending up having to pay like millions to spouses, and it's also happening on the side of women as well. So there was a gentleman, can't remember his name, who married a woman, and they'd been married for 20 years, and she decided, it's time for divorce. She goes to get a lawyer, and the lawyer informs her, you have already been divorced, darling, 20 years ago. And apparently in Colombia, you could actually divorce someone without their knowledge. So they've been living together for 20 years while she was divorced. So basically they were just girlfriend and boyfriend, but living together. And she's thinking that she's still married to this man. And we don't want to judge him. He may have had his reasons. We may call it deceit. We may call it all kinds of things. But we don't want to. We will do the whole drawing of the lines at the end of the conversation. But to kick us off, we're going to ask Mama Swan, what would you tell a black swan? Let's say she's over 50, she's really wealthy, and is now just about to marry the man of her dreams, but he's not as wealthy. What would you say to her regarding this? Oh, you're on mute, Mama Swan.
I don't know, there's something about the mute button today that I seem to like. I think it's pretty obvious. I think, like you said earlier, let's record this actually for a few. There we go. You can tell we're all novices. We really need to get this together, this whole life situation together.
Actually.
I think we actually need to get professionals on this. Anyway, so basically I think prenups, when they first sort of came into the world, it was really just for wealthy men trying to protect their wealth from, gold diggers or young women with intention to use them, then run off with their money. And, I think at the time it filled the average woman with horror. It signaled, he doesn't trust me. This marriage is transactional. It kind of killed the romance of planning for a divorce. And I think everybody's sort of feelings around this were quite yuck. But certainly the world has definitely changed very fast. And we're now hearing of celebrity women and women with power and influence getting divorced and losing half their stuff as well. So it's almost an even playing field. So a lot of women who are certainly over 40 and have accomplished something and have got something to protect are now thinking, gosh, I need a prenup as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot. I mean, I would definitely say, it's a good idea. I think that for me, and I've always said this to women, even in the beginning of my career when they were dating wealthier men, because when black swans come from being ducks and chickens and become black swans, they will elevate and start meeting men that are of means and men of substance. And, I'm not saying that the only men of substance have got money, but it's very difficult to have substance and character and be grounded as a person and also be a failure. It kind of doesn't tend to follow. It sometimes happens, you get a person who works very hard but can't kind of reach a certain financial level, but generally people with that kind of discipline tend to have sort of money. So a lot of our black swans are sort of ascending and meeting men of quality, substance, character and wealth, and these questions were starting to be presented to them. And of course, at that time, it was like, no. And my whole thing was, whether you come with your own money or not, it's why do you think that the prenup is only one-sided anyway? Because a prenup can be done in such a way that you agree on terms. Nobody's just signing away their lives with a prenup. So even if he's the billionaire and he's like, in here that you get 0, you can still negotiate that contract and say, well, if it's me you want to marry, I'm getting 30%, or I'm getting whatever you make in the time that we're married. So you can keep whatever you've made since we've been together, but anything you make after we're married, there's so many deals to be done here. So I just think that a prenup is so, so useful. And we can talk about the legalities of it maybe later. Otherwise, I'll take over this situation. But it's a definite yes for me. It's a complete, total yes.
Yeah. And I was going to move it over to Coach Yvonne, but I have a different question for you, Coach Yvonne. Humor me if you may. I want to actually ask you, does it really have to just be about money when it comes to prenups? What is your opinion on that?
When we decided that we were going to do this, I looked into the whole prenup thing. And as I'm just a tiny bit older than you ladies.
Only just by like a month.
Just that's like why I said tiny bit. Can you see? Tiny bit.
A day or two.
Yes, thank you. Here in the UK, prenups are unheard of, even in high society and what have you, because it was an American thing. And it's the same, I suppose it's like everything else. America sneezes and Britain gets cold. And so everything eventually translates here. So I was quite surprised, when I looked into it and realized that 1/5 of men and women who are getting married now are, having prenups done. So it's become a thing here in London. I think prenups, for most people, it's something that they wouldn't even consider. But if you've got something, you've worked hard to get your business or whatever it is together, and whether it's a him, he has worked hard, she has worked hard, the other parties that are coming in does not have as much. No one's going to, we don't have a finite amount of anything. So the little or much that we have, we want to have it protected. So if you're going to have it protected, I'm in agreement with what Mama Swan says. You know what? Both parties come together. Perchance this doesn't work out, because nobody walks down the aisle thinking, yay, I'm going to get divorced, and when I do, I'm going to celebrate and do all that. We don't. We think this is going to last forever. But situations change, people change. So if that's the case, come together and agree amicable. It could be a case of what everybody goes away with what they've got. Or if I've got less than you, we agree on an amount. If we're young enough and there's children involved, then okay, then there's an amount that must be set aside for the children's education and so on. And, to see them going off into the world until they're able to, create their own. So I think it's a case of let's come together and agree on something that is going to be amicable. And what one stipulation, if it was me and situations were different, I would put it into place. Whatever it is we agree today does not get changed, regardless of who has what. So let's say 15 years later, a divorce happens to be going on, and I happen to be the wealthier of the two, or if he happens to be the wealthier and there are no children involved, then if I agree to 2 million, let's say, at the end of that, that's what I must walk away with. Because he's got billions, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's mine. So whatever it is that we agree on that day, let us stick to it and stop going backwards. Stop making lawyers rich, because that's all that happens. The lawyers get rich, and so.
I hear you. I definitely hear you. And it's definitely a conversation to be had when it comes to the finances. But I think my main question is always about the heart of it when you're getting into a prenup. I mean, I'm sure Chengi has mentioned before where she's had women who've been presented with prenups, and they kind of get into a hissy like, oh my God, he's asking me to sign a prenup. He doesn't love me. Da, 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 da. How do you get the emotion out of it to actually just see it for what it is? And also, again, the same question I was asking Yvonne is, what do you think about actually involving the emotional things that happen within a couple, within a prenup? So it doesn't necessarily have to just be about money.
Do you know what? When the way in which prenups were done at the beginning, it literally was a case of it was mostly men who wanted them because they had money. So what they really would do is to bring a piece of paper, put it in front of the person and say, sign here. And she did, and got off and lived her life until, something went wrong. But now we've become more savvy. And I suppose if you've done the work and you're a black swan and a prenup is presented to you and say, look, let's do this. Because of the very fact that we're women and we get into our feelings first, our feelings get hurt because how dare you, are you saying, and all manner of things happen. Let's stop that and look at this logically. And the logical thing here is, okay, I've got this, he's got that. I've got more, so let me protect mine. He's asking for this. Let me protect what I've got by doing this. And he's saying, let me protect what I've got by doing this. So it's feelings here has got to come off the table. I know it sounds easy, but when you love someone, you love them because you love them. You're not thinking that, why would you want me to sign a prenup though? This is going to last forever. But statistics tell us that it doesn't last forever. People change, situations happen, and people fall out of love. So just in case it does happen, let us make sure that we are both happy in what it is that we've requested.
You've muted yourself again, Mama Swan.
Here I go again.
You want to go all silent on us today. What's happening?
You know what it is? I'm trying to not cough in people's faces, even though I'm so much better.
And that's the thing that we need to actually talk about one day, about etiquette. Thank you so much for considering us.
Thank you. So basically, one of the things that I love that Dr. Pat Allen says is, you know how much you love other people and yourself by the agreements you're willing to make and keep.
Yeah.
And I believe that is so revolutionary. And I really drive that in my practice, in the Black Swan practice, because we need to understand that it is romantic, it is loving to actually sit down with somebody and make an agreement that is for their good. And then keep it.
Might need you to repeat that for the note takers on the line. Please.
It is loving. It is the high act of love. Or us to not only be willing, but be proactive to make an agreement that is for the other person's good, and then to keep it, and for our good as well. Everything that we are today is down to a contract. God signed a contract with us.
Yeah.
He signed a contract that we live by. He made an agreement with us that he made because he loved us so much and keeps daily. That he would give his only son to die for us. And by accepting that contract, by signing on that dotted line, we would have life eternal. That has never changed. He has kept his word. He has made a promise and he's kept his word. The problem is that we were taught that contracts are transactional.
Yeah.
Contracts are just another word for agreements. When we realize that if I truly treasure and value a thing and want it to last, I must create contracts. Now, what I want to normalize, and this is going to happen, I know it will, because when I set my mind, I want to normalize contracts happening formally from day one. Let's make agreements to be kind to each other from day one. Let's make an agreement to tell each other, I don't want to be here anymore in the dating phase rather than ghosting each other. Let's do that. Let's go out for a drink for the first date and actually make an agreement. Listen, if you decide to change your mind, you lose attraction for me. Can we agree that you're just going to keep on moving and not waste my time? Can we agree that if we're going to be here together, that you're going to be consistent in how much you speak to me? I need to hear from you twice a day. I need to hear from you once a day. Could you sign off on that?
Every other hour.
And then exactly. Or by the hour. I need to hear from you by the hour. If we are willing, and I truly believe that it's going to become necessary with the way that the dating world has changed. It's going to be necessary for us to be bold enough to make contracts. The truth is we are making them anyway. We're just making them covertly. Right? Now, I feel that it's really about changing our mind so that we don't end up in the situation that Coach Yvonne is talking about, where our feelings get in the way, and realize that our feelings are directed by our thinking. And as long as we think that making what is marriage anyway? Is it not a contract?
It is.
But we don't get emotional about it. You're making me sign away my life, right? It's a contract, a legally binding. Try getting a divorce and you'll see how legal that contract is. On the day, everybody's wearing a beautiful dress and everybody's clapping and everybody's taking pictures of them signing the contract. It's a contract, baby. And coming out of that contract will take 12 months and cost you a lot of money.
It's not easy.
You're lucky.
Exactly. We find a way to romanticize that contract. But God forbid you ask me to sign some contracts along the way to that contract, and then all of a sudden all of a sudden it's transactional, all of a sudden it's problematic. So I believe that it's about changing the way we think about contracts, seeing them as agreements, seeing agreements as the way that we show somebody love, and sticking to the agreement is how we consistently show them love. So for me, that's how we deal with that emotional situation.
And I love how you've put it, because it kind of brings me back to the point of COVID contracts, because there are a lot of women who are getting into relationships where the sexual contracts are not even voiced. There are emotional contracts that they're getting into by going to the first date and a guy has booked somewhere and you're driving all the way to wherever. That's a contract that you signed by your actions, right? So would it then make sense to actually then say, you know what, before you even start dating, I think you really need to always evaluate any contracts you're willing to go into, which is what I think we do anyway at Black Swan, right? So Yvonne, I'd love you to talk, because you're married, and if your husband had come to you today and says to you, honey, I would like us to sit down and think about the contract of our marriage moving forward.
I think I would have welcomed it, because the reason why I say I would have welcomed it is when you're talking about a contract of marriage, we're not talking about the one that you sign in the registry, or in the church when he says, will thou love her? Dick, will thou honor her? That's not the one that we're talking about. We're talking about a contract that is, you, I do this, as Mama Swan said, be kind. I'm going to be kind. I'm going to treat you this way. We're going to do, this is where, you know, if we decide that let's live here for 5 years, after 5 years, then let's look to move, and so on and so on. If that was the kind of contract that was going to be presented to me, and we sat down and we discuss it, in 3 years' time, I can take the contract out and say, remember, we signed to say that in 5 years we're going to move. We've been here for 3 years now. Shall we start looking at properties? Let's see what's happening in the property market. You've got something that you can refer back to. And then when you refer back to it, okay, we were supposed to be going on date nights X, Y amount of times a month. We haven't had one for 3 months. I know you've been busy, so have I, but let us put something in the diary together for now. There's a referral point in which you can go to. If it was a contract that I had in my head that I had not discussed with him at all, and in my head, well, you're supposed to be doing this and he's messed up, I'm an idiot. Because in order for something to happen, two people have got to make an agreement. And if we don't make an agreement, then anything can go. So to answer your question, yes, that kind of contract I would definitely have recommended. I would definitely have signed, would definitely have sat down, and in fact would have wanted to add some things to it, because there may have been some things that was there and some things that was on there I would have wanted us to discuss and, you know, either take off or adjust so that it's beneficial for both of us. And I think if we go into marriage with that concept of forgetting all the, starry-eyed and Disney, and, you know, it's not what the celebrant says or what the pastor's saying at that moment. It's how you're going to live your life afterwards. That's the kind of contract we should be looking into.
Love that. Did you have anything else to add, Mama Swan? I was just going to go into the comments.
No, I was going to say that's a quality contract, because I think we make a contract to stay, but we never make a contract as to what conditions we will stay.
Oh, love.
Yes.
Okay.
That is
I think you might have to go into that.
And even though we haven't got it written down, everybody comes in with their conditions.
The
only problem is we're keeping them a secret from each other.
Yes.
And then we're having them violated over and over again, and then we leave because everything on our contract has not been signed. And the reason why we end up with divorce is because I've got a couple at the moment that I'm working with. It's actually a Black Swan who is now in a relationship, and, you know, I've recommended that they both go for counseling, coaching, whatever. And I didn't just send them off, like, go off and counsel, because they've got a healthy relationship, but they've got some issues. I said, you've got to make 3 contracts here. The only reason you're fighting like cat and dog, and the only reason 2 people who have everything going for them, who are compatible, are falling out is because you got 2 different contracts. And I want you to go and speak about, to set up these 3 contracts. What is your financial contract? What is your sexual contract? And what is your spiritual contract? Because the only thing going on is you got a whole situation, terms and conditions, what your expectations are. Now, they're lucky, they're very blessed to have the Black Swan Relationship Academy to journey with them through this. But I actually believe every single person who intends to walk up the aisle and stay married, must go through these contracts at different stages of the relationship. So from dating, we have a dating contract. When we become exclusive, we have exclusivity contract. What does that look like? Can I date other people, or do we just date each other? Okay, while we're dating just each other, does that mean that we can still talk to the people in the DMs? Or does that mean that we have to come off all things? You stop liking persons, you stop liking that girl's things, I stop liking men's. What does that mean? What is the detail? We can agree on that courtship contract. Then when we're married, what is the contract? What is acceptable? Are you allowed to flirt? Are you allowed to hug people front ways, sideways, hug, no hug, front hug? I mean, this sounds really silly, and I know I'm putting it in my...
it doesn't.
No, because the truth is, the people that are not comfortable with their partner hugging everybody in church or hugging people on the street, but that it might be their partner's love language.
Not even talking to other people.
Not even talking. Like, let's have it out, because what happens is, even as relationships progress, the contracts change. So what
Yeah.
you're prepared to cope with in the dating phase, all of a sudden, now that he's my boyfriend, I don't like it. And now he's my husband. Are you serious? Right? So at each stage, we need to review, right? And within that marriage, the first year of marriage, that contract needs to be reviewed every month, because we're still learning what that looks like. And then every 3 to 5 years, we need to go through renewal, right? And if we really believe marriage is a serious thing, we need to start treating it like it's serious. We need to stop treating it like it's like a stroll in the park, like a romantic ideal. We need to start including this way of thinking in order for relationships to succeed and last and have quality, because they die because of lack of quality.
I love what you're saying. Go on, Coach Yvonne.
Sorry, Coach Chengi, what I was going to say is, and this is where you were speaking about earlier with what Dr. Pat Allen said with, it's because you love that person that you would want the very best for them. And when you make that contract, and in order for that to happen, where you can actually see how much this person loves you, so that we're actually loving each other and we're doing this for one another, is by the simple fact that two people can come together and communicate and make themselves vulnerable, so that they both understand where each other is coming from. Because if you don't have that one person sitting there and talking and saying, how about we do this, and the other person sitting there quiet because they, does he really love me? Is this a reason why he's wanting that? And in not saying anything, nothing's going to get done. So both people have to really come together and lay their cards on the table and be open and frank with each other. And communication here at the very beginning, from the time you say yes to the date and you start dating, communication has got to be all the way, so that everybody knows what page they're on. And if you want something to change, be bold enough to say, I don't like when you do that. That way, I think a lot of relationships would survive longer if people were totally honest. I'm not talking about bull in a china shop. There are ways that you can tell someone that you want something doing or not want something doing without it blowing up into an argument. And it's just finding the right way to do that. And just as a sidebar, we have this in the Black Swan Relationship Academy, where you can find out how to speak to a man so that they listen. We also have 50 questions that you should ask, and so much more.
Exactly. And I'm jumping on that. I was actually just thinking now, I think we also need to add fluidity and flexibility to our contract.
Yes.
Because the way we're talking right now, yes, that can lead to a prenup. But I think the prenup is like the smoke behind the mirror, smoke in the mirror, blah, blah, blah story. There's really more to be said about when you're actually dating someone.
Yes.
Like we mentioned COVID contracts. We've talked about all these things, but I think just for those who are generally not really within the Swan Nation world, but watch us on YouTube, they will have never really heard us talking about these sexual contracts, these verbal contracts, these spiritual contracts. I'd love you guys to actually really go into all of that, especially say I've just on the first date, I really love this guy, I've got a connection with him. How do you even approach that subject? And is it really the woman's job to even approach it? So it's really up to both of you, whoever wants to take what. But I'll let you, Mama Swan, start.
Okay, so there are really 3 contracts that really, really matter that we can focus on. The nuances from that, but there are 3 contracts, that is time, money, and sex. Okay, and at each stage of the relationship, they discuss differently with a different element of seriousness. Okay, so the first, when you're dating, the dating phase is for collecting data and raising attraction. It has 2 purposes: to collect data and raise attraction. At this point, you are asking questions that pertain to the contract that you already have with yourself. All right. So before, as a Black Swan, before you show up into a room, depending on the depth of how you are ingrained in the black swanness,
Yeah.
you will know this and you'll be competent to a degree. So if you've done the Soulmate Attraction System course with a coach, you will have a clear sense of your core needs. Those create for you your values, those create your principles, and those create the reason, the questioning. Okay, so when we get to module 7, we begin to look at the things that we work through, and we have a set of questions that will help us understand we've got this contract with ourselves, right? Because we know how much we love other people or ourselves by the agreements we're willing to make and keep. So the first contract you have is with yourself. What, how low will I go? I make a contract with Chengi that she will never accept coffee dates. That is the agreement she has with herself. Okay, it does, or drinks, because they're a waste of her time. Okay, so because for me, if you don't put food in front of me, there will be no raising of attraction. Okay, I'll be very, very mad at you. So there's no point. Okay, because that's how I am wired. I value being fed. FYI, right? So in all seriousness, that is a contract that I would have with myself. So before I even enter the dating, situation, I already have this contract with myself that there are levels and standards I will not accept. Okay. It doesn't make that man a bad man. It just makes him inappropriate for my contract. Things a lot of us are navigating this world with no actual sexual contract with ourselves, no actual time contract with ourselves. I'm going to take one day a week to look after myself. Is that a contract with yourself? Are you willing to change that because you found a hottie, right? Money, right? So until you practice the art of keeping your own personal contract with yourself, I've got a personal contract to go to the gym twice a week. I hate it. But I remind myself, Chengi, remember you love yourself? So you have to go there and do the work because you love yourself, because you made an agreement with yourself, right? So once you practice that contract, so it's about how do you spend your time? How do you spend your money? How do you value your body as a sexual being? What does sexuality mean to you? At what point will you open yourself up sexually to somebody? What price do they have to pay? What price will they have to pay so that even if it didn't work out and they decided by divorce or dumping me that they don't want anymore, I won't feel duped because I was giving from a place of abundance, because I knew that was a standard for me. So it's really the number one contract you have with yourself that really truly matters, and that you're keeping even before the man comes. So will I take myself out for a coffee? Yes. But while I'm there, I'm going to buy myself some food too, right? Yeah. Because I've got to feed me. I like feeding me. I've got a love affair with food. I've discovered in my 40s. Who knew? Right? So, it's kind of, do I take care of myself? Do I just take myself for a drink, or do I get myself something to eat as well? Because it's the standard that I'm keeping for myself before I impose my person. Once I've got that contract with myself, then I'm interviewing somebody who can participate in that contract comfortably. I say comfortably because what we don't want is a situation where in the dating phase, we're wrestling somebody into our standards, right? They think that coffee and drinks is a very natural way of progressing things. And I think no, right? So why are we fighting? We don't need to fight. There are a million women who will happily, in fact, prefer coffee and drinks because they would rather not be, out there with somebody talking for long and because they need to warm up to a man. Some don't even want a coffee. Some are happy to walk in the park. Billions of women prepared to do that. So why are we arm wrestling each other here for dinner? Because we don't have to. And there's a man who will offer me, and I would say 95% of the men that I've dated have offered me precisely what I need from the gate. Right? They've offered me dinner somewhere beautiful, and that's just how it is. So again, energy. So things like that are, things where we can then start in the dating phase. We don't want to arm wrestle. We don't want to drag anybody kicking and screaming to anything. No. Okay. We don't want to be pushing a man away from dating, from our bedroom, from the first date. I mean, we don't want a situation where it's like, no, right? we want a man who's on the same sexual frequency, who has the same ideas about when things should happen. So this is what we want to do at the dating phase. We don't want to be pushing too hard. We don't want to be tugging too hard, because we want to be focused on collecting data and raising attraction. And then, of course, at the second phase of the relationship, when things get a little bit serious, 3 months in, he's asking for exclusivity of whatever version you will agree on. And this is where exclusivity brings in that need for more stern contracts. But again, we're not presenting a piece of paper before a man and saying, sign it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, nothing happens.
Some swans actually think that, though. Some swans actually think I have to write it down and show him. So I think that you need to really clarify, like really dig in on that.
Yes. So, feel free to chime in whenever you're ready, Coach Yvonne. But, it's not a written contract, albeit I'm quite happy to present a man with one at this stage, quite frankly, because I take myself very seriously. If my husband happens to be watching this, I'm not as scary as I come across. I'm really quite a sweet soul. Don't run away from me. Come closer.
We agree.
You are loved by Mama Swan. Come through. Okay. But I do take myself very seriously, in that I would happily, in a kind of clever way, say, well, will you sign my contract then? If you want a piece of us, so will you sign my contract? Okay. So if you are able to sneak that in a cool way, in a way that's, I'm really funny, by the way, if you don't know, in case I told you, I'm very funny when it comes to men. I always have them laughing, So, I can put it in there as a joke and say, sign on the dotted line, but really it's not about signing. It's really about verbal agreements. And whilst they may not hold weight in court, it's not, at this stage, we're not talking about bringing in the legal system. There is a legal system that actually works for us, by the way. For those of us who are believers, we will understand that there's a spiritual legal system, and that the word of a person is binding spiritually. Okay. And we understand that to be the case. So, you can issue this contract, and this contract is about longevity, continuity, exclusivity, right? What does continuity mean? Now I'm going to have to cough. Sorry.
Sorry.
What does continuity mean? It means I'm making a contract with you that the way you've been treating me, that has brought us to this point. So you've been taking me on dates. You've been telling me I'm beautiful. You've been telling me I'm the prettiest woman in the whole wide world. You've been buying me flowers. You've been opening doors. You've been whatever you've been doing that I have enjoyed shall continue.
Yes.
And I am also signing on whatever I've been doing, looking pretty, showing up, being sweet, shall continue, right? Whatever has brought us to this point where commitment has come to the table, that's continuity. We shall continue in this way. Now, it might be that the man might say, you know what, I can't keep it up. I was just like really giving you the best for the 3 months, but actually the way my career is wired, and the way my bank account is structured, and the way, my family situation is structured, I can't actually keep that up, in which case we can then negotiate what works for you. Okay, this is why it's so important, because most men will fall off when they get that exclusivity, because they didn't get an opportunity to explain, or didn't feel they could explain without losing you. So at this point, we're like, can you continue? You've been buying me flowers, you've been showing up, you've been calling me every day, we've been having 1-hour conversations for the last 3 months. I've loved that. It made me feel special. It's actually brought me to a point where I don't want to see anybody else. However, can you commit to continuing this? Is there something that you can keep up? And what would you like me to keep up as well? What do you love about what I do for you? What would you like more of? Because, I want to know where my standards shouldn't drop. Okay. So that's a continuity contract. And then a longevity contract is, I will only be exclusive with you if this leads to marriage, if this leads to us moving in together, if this leads to us having children. I've got a friend, I call her friend, but she was on my son's school, and she had a longevity contract that just required the man to give her 2 children, and they're still together. She did not want marriage, she did not ask him for marriage. It was not on the cards. She just wanted 2 kids. They're still together, and she's got her 2 kids. So that can be a contract for you, depending on because not everybody wants to get married. Not everybody is Christian. Not everybody. So, you've got to figure out for you what will be satisfactory. Okay. And they've been together now for years and years and years. And these kids are growing up and everything. So it's about, that's your kind of, then exclusivity contract is what's exclusive to us. Does exclusivity mean that we're exclusive digitally? It doesn't mean we're just exclusive offline. So digitally, you can go liking girls' pictures, you can go DMing them. It's okay. Does it mean you can still stay on the app? Does it mean you come off the app? What that, what does you and me being exclusive mean? Does it mean that we can invite third parties now and again? What does it mean? Because everybody is different. So clarify, because often when we say we're exclusive, the man is still on the app talking to somebody else, and you didn't. So now you're mad. You didn't sign that contract. So those are the 3 contracts at the exclusivity, aka also known as the relationship phase. But when we now get into marriage, we now need to have a contract that is a lot broader, still on that basis, but now we're negotiating time. Time alone, time together. I'm giving away the whole premarital course. Time alone. You didn't ask. Time alone, time together, me time, us time. How do we spend it? So if we're doing us time, are we both on our phones? Are we allowed to be on our phones, or is phones away? Right? What does us time look like? Does it look like being physically together, or can we be digitally together? Or what is us time for us, and what is me time? Is it 24 hours away from you once a week, or is it just I take an hour away every day, or I just need some time in the kitchen alone? What does that look like? Time. Okay, time and space are kind of the same thing. And then money. What is our money? What is your money? And how do we spend our money? And how I remember growing up and it was like, your money is my money. And my money is my money. And there are men that sign those contracts. There are men that don't want their women's money. The woman's money is for her to do whatever the hell she wants to do with it. He doesn't want her money to run anything. So again, let's have these contracts. Let's talk about what our money looks like. How we spend our money. And once we have these contracts, they're really solid ground for moving forward. Of course, there are nuances which we'll not go into, but it's kind of the framework of contracts. And at this point, I really feel that before marriage, we should sign this contract with a therapist. I think that we should have a therapist, a coach, a counselor present to help us negotiate this premarital contract. And we can sign off on it in a very official way before we actually walk up the aisle. Because many people are walking up the aisle with distorted ideas.
Very much so.
Very much so. And I was actually going to ask Coach Yvonne to really go into that a lot more, because again, there's so many of us that are just walking blind into relationships, into there's so much covidness going on. So how do I actually really approach that idea of, I need to make my things clear here before I walk down the aisle? How do I actually approach that?
Something I'm never sure where this saying comes from, whether it's biblical or not, but it's something that I've always known, and it's to thine own self be true. And the only way you're going, it is shaped. I knew it was from somewhere, but as I don't know, in my head, it's biblical because it sounds that it should be biblical.
It was written in the biblical times. And William Shakespeare was over here writing poetry, and James, the person who translated for King James, was over there. They were sitting in the same room.
Okay, so they came together. They had a collaboration unique, and they said, it's okay, you can use it. And so it's come about. And, that is so true, because when you know yourself and you know what it is you want, you can start your negotiation from there, because you know what it is you want. And here's the thing, when we decide that we are dating, and the way in which Mama Swan eloquently put the contracts together, in order for all of that to take place, it's 2 imperfect people that are coming together, that are wanting to have things done, and both of them think they're right. We want to be exclusive. You think exclusive means one thing, the other person thinks it means another. Now, if you're the woman and you're quiet and you're not saying anything, he's going to say, okay, exclusivity means I see you during the week, and I can do what I like at the weekend. And because she's thinking, you know what, I've got a man, half a bread is better than nothing. Yes, of course, darling. Yes.
We're only boyfriend and girlfriend from Monday to
Yes,
Friday.
and yes, and and that is fine. I watched a ream yesterday, which they come up all over, and it was a man and woman sitting on a couch, and the man's phone rings, and he puts his earpiece in and says hello. He says hello, and she says hello, darling, and she says, I'm laying here on the bed naked. Are you coming over? Yes, I'll be there in a minute. So he takes his hair thing out and says to his wife, they need me at work. So she says, how long are you going to be? He says, oh, about 8-9 hours. So she said, okay. And then here, you better take this. Did you listen? No. Yeah, that's a joke, and we all but what contract did they put together when they came? Is it okay for me to still have girlfriends while we're married? What can I do? Because you do have a dear friend of mine told me about a couple who it's okay for them to do threesomes, and she will go out and find people to join them, and everybody's happy with it. But are they really, or are you just doing that because half a bread is better than nothing, and he's paying the mortgage, he's doing, so let me do this so that at least, number one, I've got a husband, number two, I've got somebody who's paying the bills and taking care of the children, and number three, we're not going without. And he's still with me, he hasn't left me for anyone, so it's okay to do this. It's when it comes to two people coming together and trying to make a life with all that there is going on out there, honesty and vulnerability are two important things that they have got to sit down and do, because without it, it's going to make it very, 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 very difficult, because situations change, we change. The person that I was when I got married the first time, it's not the person that I am when I got married the second time, still married now to the person I married the first time. Is it something that, it's so wonderful? And no, there are days where I think I said to Chengi the other day, if I could kill him and put him back together again, I would do it. But how I was at 20 and how I am today is so much water has gone under the bridge, and thank God for Black Swan that I know who I am, know what I want, and also most importantly, I know that I've got a voice, and a voice that is being heard. And a lot of women, when we are getting married, we think, he will understand me after. Yes. Let me get this out of the way, do the marriage, and then it's after the children, after I've had the children, then it's after the children have left the house, and then you don't understand why you've got two children and he's packing his bags upstairs, getting ready to leave, because you never gave yourself the opportunity to take care of you and to find your voice and use it. And I'm not talking about browbeating him and shouting and all those things, but use your voice in such a way that when you speak to him, he hears, not because you're lecturing, not because you're belittling him, not because you're you're forever punching him. It's because you're stroking and you're being kind. And kindness to each other is it's so important, so that just a kind word to somebody can turn any situation around. Just because the two of you had words, she's gone east, you've gone west, everybody's gone away. Just somebody coming in and saying, are you okay? Do you get what I mean? We've forgotten how to be kind. We've forgotten how to be patient. We've forgotten how to speak again to one another, and everyone just wants to open their mouth and no.
I know, right? And literally, as we were talking about that earlier, because you mentioned something about vulnerability, because we get to that place of vulnerability when we're true to ourselves. I actually Googled the full saying, which is, this above all, to thine own self be true, and it must follow as the night the day, thou canst not then be false to any man. So it's that idea of really being connected to your own values, your boundaries, your needs, the things that we talk about in the soulmate attraction system. Whenever you book one with a coach, even without a coach, you can still do self-study, but we always advise you to do it with a coach, because then that way you can unearth so much more that you discover about yourself. There's so much more when you discover, like right now in conversation, we are discovering so much more about each other. Conversation brings that about, and you can only have conversations when you're vulnerable. Yes. Vulnerability allows you then to say to a person, because what I can hear some of the viewers saying right now, yeah, I can want this, but I'll be too afraid to even say, like, oh, I really want you to open the door for me. Like little things like that, because already by someone not opening the door for me, they've violated my contract, because I'm looking at them sideways and thinking, what kind of gentleman are you? Who taught you? Who's your mother? Like, why do you not know these things? That kind of thing. And I think there's a time as well, I think when Chengi, and I think we've had this conversation before, and I was like, well, he's not really a true gentleman, because he didn't know to walk on the other side of the road. I could have been hit by a car. Because that's my expectation. He was not raised by the same parents. He doesn't have the same cultural upbringing. But in me being quiet about that need, I'm already violating a contract with myself. I'm saying, okay, fine. He's a man, right? Half a bread is better than none. And it's like, how do we speak to those women who are like, I don't even know how to articulate what I need from this man, besides getting the how to speak to men so that he can listen, besides all of that, like, how do I actually verbalize the things I need for me to actually even have a contract with myself?
You know, it may sound very silly, what I'm going to say. Start by talking in the mirror. Because if you don't know what it is that you know what you want, but you don't know how to say it, look at yourself in the mirror. And as you're looking at yourself, what do I want? I want Johnny to open the door for me. So get a tape recorder, look at yourself in the mirror and record what it is you're saying. How do you sound? Do you sound threatening? Do you sound vulnerable? Do you sound upset? You know, and keep doing it and repeating it. And then when you found the tone that you want, when you found the words that you want to use, when you're comfortable with asking yourself a simple thing as, because if you can't ask them to open the door for you, how are you going to ask them to do the big things for you that is going to keep you guys together if the little
let alone the prenup?
Yeah, exactly. You know, so it does sound silly, but it's usually the silly things that we don't want to do are the things that actually do work. Because if you record what it is that you're saying, most people, when they hear their voice, oh my God, I hate the way I sound. Okay, so if you hate the way you sound and other people are hearing you, do you think they're hating it? So then you can change the tone, because when you hear yourself, you don't hear the tone. But when you're listening to yourself on, you know, after you've recorded it, you know what it is that you sound like. You've got scripts that we've got on the app that you can use. Or what would you want somebody to say to you if the situations were reversed? And once you know, I would like him to say, you are, oh, my darling, I love that dress that you're wearing. Then say it. Say it. Record it, look at yourself, say it, oh, don't you look lovely?
And that is that whole self-talk, right? It's and this is where the affirmations come in. If you don't, some of us don't even know how to talk to ourselves, like, because we're all so critical of our own voices, sometimes the most deadliest of all voices, because we're so critical of ourselves. And I think the affirmations definitely help you step up your self-talk. Bring it in a little bit more positive, and those are things that you can find in our shop. I mean, if you have a look after the live, we'll have all the details all in the description box. You can just click in there, get the self-love affirmations. So I will tell you that you are blessed, you are wonderful, you are fearful and wonderfully made, and you deserve everything that you want. And there's a saying that we say, which is coined by moi, Want what you want, darling, and allow yourself to want it.
Yes, and do you know what? There's nothing wrong with it. There's
Exactly.
nothing wrong with you wanting what you want and getting it. And you know the reason why I say look in the mirror, because it's the only time we actually look in the mirror is when we're putting our makeups on in the morning, and we know what it is we do. We put it on quickly, we look at ourselves, and we do the hair and we go out the door. We don't actually stop and look at ourselves and say something kind about you to you. Tell yourself, oh, you look really great today. Oh, I love that lipstick on you. Why not? You're not being silly, but you are complimenting you, and you're getting into the habit of saying nice things to you. And when you're saying nice things to yourself and doing nice things to you, guess what? You won't accept any less from anyone else. But what you do for yourself, you're not going to allow somebody to treat you differently. You're going to want them to, come to your standard and treat you there, not to bring you down. So it's important to do these things to gain courage and to give yourself, what word am I looking for? To give yourself it allows you also to be vulnerable.
Yes.
Because you can look at if you're looking at yourself and saying the things that you really want to hear somebody say to you, you're seeing the vulnerability on your face when you're making that request. And when you'll see yourself and you think, but I don't know and you do, it's a joy to watch, and it does work.
It definitely is. What is your take, Mama Swan?
Such a good conversation. I think you touched on a little bit of self-compassion. I think we can really kind of put everything, Coach. I love the idea of practicing hearing yourself. Self-awareness. I love the idea of the mirror. I love the idea of not being afraid of yourself and afraid of your needs and afraid of your wants, and just practicing that being very normal. I would add that when you focus on being, the kind of men open doors for.
Yes.
You won't need to ask. There'll be something in your demeanor. So the other day I was walking somewhere with Coach Yvonne, and I was waiting by the door, and then she's like, "Are you waiting for me to open your door?" And I was like, "Oops, sorry." Right? But I find, and this has been the case for a very long time, I don't remember the last time a man did not open the door for me. Even my personal trainer, there was a time, because I just stand there, and I don't stand there with a,
well, I'm waiting for you.
What kind of man are you? I stand there because I'm a lady inside, if that makes sense. Like, I'm not pretending to be a lady. I am a lady.
You embody it.
I embody it. It is within me. So you usually, if a man will, and this is what men do, is they'll apologize.
Yes.
Innately in them, they know it's their job to provide and to protect. So even my personal trainer will be like, oh, sorry. And sometimes he'll, because he's much taller than me, and he'll kind of hold the door, and I'll pass him, I'll go underneath. And the reason I'll go underneath is because I don't want to embarrass him further, because I'd be like, no, that's not how you open the door for, but but the fact that he opened and apologized, sometimes it's not about being a diva, but what I want to talk about it. And I think the practice that Coach Yvonne has given is how we can begin to embody. Knowing that you are worthy, knowing your being. When you embody and believe in the Black Swan way, this is not just us out here on the internet trying to, run some propaganda and trying to be difficult and trying to make life hard for men. It is really actually understanding that energy is everything. And I have found that whenever I have presented this standard in a very natural way, even if a man's not going to come around and open my door, I'm just going to stand there. And then he'll be wondering, why is she still, even if he doesn't open it on the way to come out, she'll be like, why is she's still sitting there? I'll be like, waiting. And it's not like I'm trying to make a point, right? It's just the way that it's how I be. So does that mean that I never ever open my own car door when the man is there? If I'm in a situation that seems inappropriate for me to be expecting Yvonne's husband to open my door, right? I will open my own door because perhaps he just wants to open his wife's door and you can just get out, right? I am wise enough to know that there are dynamics where I'll have to, but I still pause. There's still a pause in me, and then I have to think, oh, open your door, love. Otherwise, you'll be sitting here forever. But the natural response is to sit. And, it's about being and knowing that this is my value and my worth. And to go even deeper to what you were talking about, Coach Unique, our greatest fear is to be abandoned and rejected.
Yeah.
And that is not something I want to sit here and just say, well, you can do that. You can just be calm. I don't want to minimize that, because that is connected to our traumas.
Yeah.
That is connected to a wound deep within our soul. So 99.9% of the time when we do not state our standards, live by our boundaries, or state our boundaries and live by them, or state our standards and live by them, it is often because we're afraid of rejection.
Yeah.
We must never underestimate the kind of pain connected to that fear. And so it is so important, really. I mean, I cannot emphasize this enough, and I will go to my grave saying this, because it is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yeah.
You cannot get away with not working on yourself.
Yes.
There's no shortcut to this baby.
Yeah.
And there's no cheap route
Yeah.
to this baby. There are no secret pills, secret passages. There are no hacks. There are no tips. There are no tricks. There are no hacks. There's nothing that will replace doing the work. There's nothing that will replace calling the Black Swan Relationship Academy and booking a coach. There is nothing that will replace working through the trauma.
Yeah.
Because it is hiding everything that is precious, everything that is beautiful, everything that is unafraid, everything that is glorious is hidden under this horrible wedge called trauma. And you will find that when you start to deal with your trauma and you start to really show up in your standards and your true glory, guess what happens? Men don't reject you. They value you.
Yeah.
They esteem you.
Yeah.
They pedestalize you. Because men are attracted to women who know who they are, have standards, have boundaries, and stand by them. And boy, will they test them. They will test you, baby. They will test you. They will. But when you show them, I am not like the chickens, you are dealing with a black swan, not even a white swan. You're dealing with a black swan. They might push against it. They might resist a little. They might want to poke it to make sure you're the real deal.
For real.
And you will not break your poise or your demeanor. Okay, you will respect yourself at all costs, and you will find that man will truly treasure you. Men treasure, marry, respect women that know who they are, that keep their personal contract with themselves, is pretty much what I'm saying. So the thing we fear never really comes to pass. So what is causing you to not step into it is your trauma. It's not that guy.
Yeah.
Even if he doesn't come from a home where doors don't get open, even if that's not his cultural background, he will learn for you. Evolve into that man for you. Because one thing about men is they are willing to do what it takes to win the prize.
Yeah.
You just have to establish your being a prize. And like I've said before, being a prize is not because you're born with female bits. Okay. Being a prize doesn't mean you can wear makeup.
Done it.
Right? Being a exactly like, oh, but wasn't I born with equipment? Being a prize is living a conscious life.
Yeah.
Living, as R.C. Blakes would say, a queen conscious life. Is living a black swan conscious life. It's living in the consciousness of your divine glory, your divine femininity, and your divine value. Whether a man chooses you or not, are you not worth what you're worth? Whether that diamond gets bought or not, is it still not worth the millions and billions it's worth? Is it only worth something when it's on somebody's body? Does its worth change? So when it's about realizing that I'm worth what I'm worth, with or without you. Yeah. I'm still a diamond. I am still valuable. You just can't see it. You just can't and are not prepared to pay the price. And I know that has, for me to stand here and say that, has been 12 years of harrowing work. digging
and
into
still
myself.
going, and
Yes,
still
and losing.
ongoing.
Yes, and still
It never
losing,
stops.
Yeah.
and still self-abandoning, and
We
still,
never, yeah,
right? Because
Yeah.
Mama Swan will always meet Mama Swan difficulties, right?
Yes.
There's always that guy, you know, Mama Swan is always going to warn that is going to make her shake. So no one's above it.
Mm.
It's about being on that journey and valuing the contract with yourself.
Exactly.
Yes.
Me off my
Yes.
soapbox.
Exactly. And just to kind of bring us back to the whole thing of prenups, and I think this is a very valuable point that you've raised. It's we cannot actually be true to our partners when we cannot sign our own contracts. So I think really, in a sense, we actually all need to go away and come up with our own prenups. So just to kind of end it off a little bit, Yvonne, what would your personal prenup be for yourself?
Okay, what would my personal prenup be for me? Okay. Kindness. He's got to be kind, and
So for yourself, like your
me,
personal
yeah.
one for
For
yourself.
me, okay, not for him to do for me.
No,
for
for
me
you
to do.
yourself. Because that's what it says, right? Which is what we've been saying to everybody.
I've
Like,
got to do something.
yes.
Oh, he's got to do it.
I do it anyway.
We didn't touch on that. You know that we didn't touch on the fact that sometimes we just look to men to do. Men need to do, men need to do, but we women also have to do. But I think we need to talk about that on another live, about the women that we need to be to get the kind of man that we want. I actually saw somewhere on a dating app, well, not recently, some time ago, when a guy had written, "Are you your type's type?"
This is a very important question. It must be asked.
Yes, yes.
So in our journeys to become our type's type, it was something for me to even get to a place where I'm signing this man's prenup. I need to have had a prenup with myself, a contract with myself, a contract to say I will not breach this particular thing. So what I'm asking is, what will be just your one thing that you will endeavor to not violate when it concerns Yvonne?
To be open, true, honest, and vulnerable.
Oh, love it. You stole mine, but go on.
You can still have it.
I know. What do you think, Mama Swan? What's yours?
My contract with myself is to always show myself compassion.
Yeah.
I am my worst critic, my harshest judge, my unforgiving. I don't know. I am so hard on myself and so harsh to myself. And what I find is that sometimes it overspills to the people I love.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm unaware until I feel the reaction, because we can only love people to the extent that we love ourselves.
Yeah.
And I realize that before I can stop, you know, instead of, okay, let me protect everybody from my harshness, I recognize that I don't show myself enough self-compassion. I don't give myself, I've got my conscience sitting in this Zoom, and her job is perpetually, cut yourself some slack.
I know.
This woman has been telling me this for too long.
Yeah.
And, you know, I need it. I don't know.
The lady that's just like right here.
This woman called the board. And to be honest, I am now covenanting with myself and contracting with myself, certainly before I get married, to show myself self-compassion. And instead of waiting to hear it from outside of myself, say to myself, cut yourself some slack, Chengi.
Yeah.
That was a hard
and you need to hear it a few times, don't you?
Yeah.
For it to really sink in.
Yeah.
Like, cut yourself
You're human too. You get tired too. You make mistakes too. And it's okay. You don't have to always get it right. You don't always have to, you know, be perfect. And I believe if I write that prenup, I'm going to be a lot more compassionate, because I think that my husband when needed. I think he might.
Yeah. My most recent contract with myself, I've been signing a few for the past few days. It's felt like it's been contract writing week. My personal, I think I actually wrote it this morning as we journal, all of us journal here. And those are the things that, again, that make us the women that we are. Our type. We're learning about ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
My thing is to continue to be open-hearted, because I have recently discovered that I had a very closed heart. I really, like, you know, the minute you'd open, I just shut it back down. Like, no, go away, leave me alone. And then you start to develop all these avoidant attachment system and all these things that go on around your life, is to remind myself to be open-hearted, to remind myself to enter situations with a curiosity, enter situations with an open heart, because in all reality, a heart can never break. All you'd ever do to a heart is literally make it grow and learn again. We are that malleable as human beings. You can never break something flesh, as it were. All it is, it just takes on a different form of more understanding, a different form of more compassion, a different form of more self-love. And again, cutting yourself a lot of slack, not even a little bit, a lot of slack. And I think that's like, that should be the Black Swan national anthem. Cut yourself some slack. Some slack. And on second,
only after you've behaved yourself.
Yes,
after you've cutting slack all over the show.
I know, right? Cut yourself some well-deserved slack.
Yeah,
very
much so.
So there's not many questions, but just to say again, if you've just joined us, we were talking about reasons why prenups are not just celebrities, and we kind of veered off into talking about contracts, and this is where we've landed about actually signing contracts with yourself and understanding who you are intrinsically, so you can show up in the world for the man you want, the woman you want, the children you want, the family you want, the friends that you want, because all of us have all of these ideas in our head. And when most of us who are on here, and some of the listeners on the watchers, the viewers, the watchers, on because I was watching the line says people who are watching, so the viewers. I think sometimes we struggle with literally just putting down on paper, this is what I want. We're never taught to want what we want. Even as growing up as children, we're conditioned to be people pleasers. We're conditioned to fit into a already pre-designed world, even though we come with our own uniqueness, we come with our own, you know. By the minute we enter the world, we are signing contracts left, right, and center covertly without even knowing. So it's really about taking a step back. Go onto the Black Swan Relationship Academy, have a look at what we can offer you for you to be able to really write down that contract that you need for yourself. Because look, as we continue this journey of intuitive dating, intuitive relationships, because we've just moved from the standard box standard relationships, we want to do relationships on a higher level. We want to do relationships that actually have meaning and impact and a purpose in this world to change lives and impact lives. So before you go onto the website, have a question, ask yourself, what do you want to change? Go into the website, have a look at, we've got so much to offer you as in affirmations. We've got so much to offer you as in courses, and prioritize your own growth for a change, right? Prioritize your own well-being, prioritize knowing that you do actually matter. And as Coach Yvonne had quoted, is to thine own self be true. Because what then that does is then that way you will never be false to anybody else. You will always live within your true authenticity. So any last words, Coach Yvonne, as we sign off?
My last words would be, oh my gosh, I've forgotten. My last words would be not... Please go on, Swan, while I think.
Okay,
It's just
my last words are: do not forget to download the Black Swan app.
Yes.
And be there, because I'm going to be trying to be there doing lives as often as possible, and I know the coaches will be jumping on there, because I'd love to continue to have these conversations. And I know that after people have watched something like this, they might have a lot of questions, and we want to sort of create an opportunity for you to ask those questions for as long as you need to. But do join the Black Swan app, because you can actually connect with us for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You can actually access the website, and you can actually, you know, access everything on your phone.
Yeah.
So if you are happy to download the app, then we will see you there. And that is my last word. I think I've said all my last words.
Yeah.
think I've too said my last word because I can't remember what it was I was going to say. But what I can say is that, you know what, it's been a joy speaking to each and every one of you. And hopefully we'll see you soon.
Indeed.
Yes, next week when we're joined by It's coming to join us live next week. So we're excited. So you guys better tune in. 8:30 p.m. BST every Tuesday, where you get the juiciest, the most liveliest, the most amazing coaches from the beautiful Black Swan Relationship Academy.
Yes.
Have yourselves an amazing evening and